Hi, everybody. This is Steve Maggi from SMA Law Firm. Welcome to another episode of Building the Bridge. And I have the honor and privilege of being with Annette Feltz today, who's an intercultural communication specialist and facilitator, works with a lot of foreign nationals doing business in the US. And so my question for you today, Annette, thank you for joining us, by the way,
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
is what are the keys to success for a foreign national doing business in the US?
That's a great question. The keys to success is understanding what drives Americans, what motivates Americans, what they expect or what they want to hear. And so it's very important to understand the American culture. And the United States is a very young country. About 250 years ago, settlers came from England to the United States in search of a better life, in search of being in charge of their own destiny. And that pioneer spirit still lives on. So whenever I work with companies that want to market their product in the United States, I tell them that Americans are pioneers. And so they don't have time for elaborate descriptions, roadmaps, everything. They want to know what is it and what is in it for me? How does your product help me? So very quick and very high level. That's very important to understand when doing business in the United States. Another thing to understand is when you manage a team with majority American employees, it's very important to understand what drives these employees. And one of the things is coming from the Netherlands, where we have a lot of job security and where the teams are seen more as, or the boss is seen more as egalitarian. In the United States, it's very easy to lose your job. And if you lose your job, you not only lose your income, you also lose your healthcare insurance. And that is very expensive. So people are much more careful in what they say and who they say things to when compared to the Netherlands. So in the United States, it's much more hierarchical. So in the Netherlands, we're used to having a discussion, openly disagreeing with our manager. In the United States, that is not done. Definitely not in meetings.
Okay.
But
So how does, sorry to interrupt. So how does a Dutch business person, knowing that after working with you, modify their behavior or the way they process certain things or the way they set up teams and the way they communicate with teams in order to fit in and to make things work with those American employees?
Well, I recently worked with a Dutch manager who moved to the US and became the manager of an American office. And he had told all his employees, I am open to hearing feedback, criticism, suggestions. Just come into my office and talk to me. And nobody came into his office to talk about how things could be improved. And in meetings, he was like, let me know. What do you think we could do different? What could I do different? And nobody came up to him and told him what he should do different. And so we worked together, and what he figured out is that this is normal business procedure in the Netherlands. But in the United States, people do not talk back to their boss. They do not criticize their boss. Because they're afraid to lose their job. And if they lose their job, they lose their income and their healthcare. There isn't this safety net that we have in the Netherlands. So what we did is we found ways of making employees feel comfortable talking to their boss, talking about how they could improve a product or a process. So instead of saying, give me feedback, give me suggestions, this person reframed his questions and would go up to somebody and say, for example, Bob, you're the expert in this. How would you handle this? What would you do? And asking the person for advice instead of asking them for feedback and having a discussion.
And maybe not necessarily in front of everyone, but one-on-one, right?
One-on-one, yeah. And just reframing the wording used. And
Right.
so small tweaks like that went a long way.
Yeah, and then that's so critical when you've just set up a business and you've invested capital and you're in that first year or two where it's make or break, as they say, right?
Exactly. Exactly, because it's very difficult to gain trust. And once you've broken the trust, it's extremely difficult to get it back.
So what are some other keys to success in terms of communicating when we're talking about Dutch professionals coming to the US or managers coming to the US? What are some other ones?
And the Dutch are used to discussing everything with everybody. And so Americans, again, very quick, very much to the point. So very few discussions. So for a Dutch manager moving to the US, it's very important to realize that the manager makes the decisions and the manager asks for input. Whereas in the Netherlands, everybody gets to give their input. In the United States, a Dutch manager would have to ask specific people for their input.
Hmm.
And that's very important. That's a huge difference between the Netherlands and the US. Another thing when doing business, when talking to potential customers, again, being very short to the point, what's in it for me. But Americans also think very much in terms of dreams, of visions, not so much statistics, not that this is gonna improve your production line by 10%. No, they think much more in visions, like this is going to make you the number one supplier. This is going to make you successful in this field, and much less in numbers.
So how does one talk about vision, but at the same time do it in a short and direct way?
It's creating a picture of the future, a very clear picture of the future, not so much in numbers, but you're going to be the most successful. You're going to be the leader in your field. Very much talking in images.
Last thing that comes to mind in terms of this is how much does a successful company, IKEA always comes to mind. I've worked with Swedish companies and some of them have failed because they have tried to impart this Swedish way of working, which is what IKEA does. No matter where you go in the world, there's an IKEA, and it's the same sort of work ethos and the same way of treating the employees, and it's not adapting to an American model. It's sort of like a little microcosm, and it seems to work for them. But what would you warn people about doing that if they're starting a business or the expansion of their business from Holland into the US?
I would like to turn that question around and say, what great things can they bring from the Netherlands to the US? And that is, the Netherlands is known for its tolerance. And so I would definitely bring that, just tolerance of people who are different, and let them be different. That will be greatly appreciated here in the US. But something else that the Dutch are known for is their work-life balance. And that is something that Americans who work for Dutch companies appreciate, that there's very much a balance between work and having a private life. So not expecting employees to check in during their vacation or their weekends or after a certain time, and making it very clear. What's that?
I can't imagine that. Not being tied to
Exactly.
your job all the time. So that sounds pretty great.
Exactly. And that is a competitive advantage, because once people see that, oh my goodness, there's not this pressure, they enjoy working for the company, and employee satisfaction shoots up and employee turnover becomes very low. The other thing is the Dutch healthcare system is everybody has healthcare benefits in the Netherlands. And so that is very much appreciated, that giving your employees healthcare benefits.
Yeah, so I really do see the advantages. And being from another country myself, I'm also aware of the fact that there are certain things in the US and the way that business is done that could be adapted to what people do outside the US. to really take better care of employees. So that's a really great observation in that.
Exactly. And retaining your key talent, that is so important in today's business world. And this is one way of doing it. And really marketing yourself towards future employees, as we're Dutch and we maintain Dutch benefits, Dutch work culture. That's the Dutch are known for their work-life balance, just like the Swedes. So
Right.
that is a key employee benefit.
I think that's the best nugget you've given us in this. Thank you so much for your time today. How do people get in touch with you if they want to put these keys to success into practice with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is by emailing me, and my email address is Annette, ANNETTE, at expatriateassistance.com. And expatriate assistance is one word.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.